Seika is an overpowered, ugly, disgusting brat who doesn't know shit about women. In the previous life, Seika gets assassinated by the court, who fears his overwhelming strength. On his last breath, Seika casts a spell to get reincarnated into another world without Truck-Kun's help and succeeds. On a starry night, countless ogres are wreaking havoc in an ancient city as no one dares stand in their way. Amidst all this, a massive dragon appears in the sky with a guy riding it. Regarded as the strongest exorcist, he believed that as long as he possessed power, nothing could be taken from him and he would be happy. He then releases his talisman that appears in front of these ogres and obliterates them, including some part of the city as well. He even saves a pathetic loser from getting devoured, but instead of getting appreciated for it, he gets assassinated by the court, who is scared of his overwhelming powers. The court had brainwashed his students to commit this heinous act, but he still doesn't blame them. At this point, he had realized that being the strongest has its own cons, and cast a spell that would allow him to reincarnate. But this time around, he vows to not repeat the same mistakes. Suddenly, he awakes in another world where he is sitting in the middle of a magic circle, and his father is appraising his magic power. It turns out that Seika is a pathetic loser who doesn't possess any magic power, which disappoints his good-for-nothing father, and even gets mocked by his brother. Seika has been reincarnated into a world where humans and demons coexist. In this world, he is born as Seika Lamperouge, the third son of the Lamperouge family, and doesn't even possess magic. Despite this, Seika realizes that he still possesses overwhelming spiritual power and experiments on some leaves. During all this, his brother Glai appears at the spot and attempts to discipline him for nothing, but ends up getting violated by Seika. Seika is now turned 7 years old, but being the son of a mistress, he gets ignored by everyone. But being an alpha, Seika doesn't give flying Fs about them and minds his own business. During all this, Seika has managed to create his own paper and forms talisman using them. As he's working on his talisman, a maid named Yifa knocks at his door and hands over his jacket. Just then, Glai appears at the spot and starts boasting about his accomplishments. He reveals that he'll be attending the Lodania Magic Academy, which piques Seika's interest. But their conversation gets interrupted by their father, who ignores Seika once again, like you guys are ignoring your pending assignments. Anyways, as they're leaving, Seika seeks permission to train with them, and his father allows it. During the training session, Seika witnesses his brother's magic spells and gets amazed. Glai then gaslights Seika into using magic, and even though Seika cannot use magic, he utilizes his spiritual powers to create a fake fireball and launches it towards the target. This shocks Glai and the others, as their father explains that there are examples of people awakening their magical abilities after some time. Seizing the opportunity, Seika asks if he can join the Lodania Magic Academy, but gets rejected by his father. After some years, Seika has now turned 11, and he can now summon Ayakashi from another realm. For starters, he summons the weakest Ayakashi, Yuki, who gets insanely happy to see Seika. After Seika lets her in on his situation, he decides to send her back, but she persists staying with him and transforms into a small fox. The following day, Yifa accidentally spills water on Glai's clothes and gets bashed for this. She keeps apologizing to Glai, but the worthless loser keeps insulting her. Staring at her melons, he instructs her to visit his room at night, which confuses Yifa. Seika, who is hearing all this, realizes that Glai wants to create a mini version of himself and intervenes to prevent that from happening, thus saving the world from another scum. Glai attempts to punch him, but Seika stops him with just a hand, further adding to his embarrassment. Following this, Yifa takes Seika outside where she shows him an injured carbuncle and asks him to heal it. Since Seika cannot use his talisman in front of Yifa, he asks her to turn around and heals the carbuncle in the process. Yifa then starts simping over Seika's abilities as Seika questions if she can visualize spirits. Hesitant in the beginning, Yifa replies positively as she reveals that she found his jacket owing to them. She further tells him that these spirits flock around Seika's stuff, but keep their distance from him, which is sus. Seika then questions if Yifa can order around these spirits, to which she replies positively again. This makes Seika insanely happy, as he's always been looking for someone who can manipulate spirits in his previous life. He then teaches Yifa to control the spirits, and their training officially begins. An entire year passes by, and Seika has turned 12 now. Unlike his brothers, his birthday isn't celebrated, and even his father is not present there. As he is heading towards his room, Glai and his elder brother offer to train him since Seika cannot use magic. Unlike Glai, who is a scumbag, their elder brother Ruff is actually a caring person who cares a lot about Seika. Just then, the maids inform them that a massive lizard is heading towards the mansion. Upon hearing this, Glai pisses himself as expected, and Seika immediately heads towards the monster. On his way, he notices that Yifa and another maid are in trouble, but before he could do anything, Yifa somehow manipulates the spirits and drives the monster away. It is now Seika's turn to show everyone who's the boss. After dodging its attack, Seika uses his combined 3 elements and strikes the monster with it. This single attack was enough to take down the monster, and this shocks everyone. Seeing this, the entire mansion starts cheering for him. With all of this going, Seika's father also appears at the spot and witnesses all this. He finally acknowledges Seika as a human being and holds a massive feast to celebrate his accomplishment. During all this, Glai is crying like a little but there's nothing he can do about this situation. Amidst all this, Seika's father wants to give him something as Seika desires to attend the Odania Magic Academy and wants to serve the nation with his talent. His father agrees to this and further states that he would still have to take the exam. Seika also wants Yifa to accompany him, but his father refuses, stating that Yifa doesn't possess any magic talent. Upon hearing this, Seika decides to demonstrate her skills to his father. Handing over a wand to her, Seika tells Yifa if she wants to accompany him, she has to create the biggest fireball and shoot it outside the window. Being the simp she is, Yifa manipulates the spirits and creates a massive fireball that shocks all of them. Seeing this, his father agrees to Seika's desires, which makes them insanely happy. Glai, however, is pissed off as he protests against this. According to him, he was supposed to attend the Magic Academy and Seika attended as well. Then they'll be violating the family's tradition. In response, his father pulls an Uno reverse and tells him that he'll be joining the army instead of Seika. Glai attempts to protest further, but his father mocks him for not working on himself all these years and hanging around with some pathetic losers. With no other option left, Glai challenges Seika to a duel on the condition that if Seika loses this duel, he'll have to leave the house. Seika obviously agrees to his conditions, and the duel is set to take place the following day. After all this, as Seika is resting in his room, Yuki questions if he's going to kill Glai, to which he replies negatively. Just then, someone knocks on his door, and as Seika opens it, he finds Ruft standing outside. The guy enters the room without permission and wishes him a happy birthday. He then hands over a gift, which is a useless glass pen, and also encourages him to study hard, unlike y'all couch potatoes glued to this vid instead of being productive. He also asks him to go easy on Glai, to which Seika agrees. As Ruft leaves the room, a gust of wind smashes open the window, and it turns out Glai is behind it. Being an impatient brat, he challenges Seika to a duel without all those rules and regulations. He deems Seika lucky for all this and strikes him with Flame Knot. However, his magic is just as useless as Sanji on an island of only men. Seika forges a barrier around him and then uses his talisman to paralyze Glai. He forces him to submit as Glai loses consciousness in the process. Keeping his promise with Ruft, Seika has to keep him alive as he carries him inside. He then laughs on his statement regarding all this being just luck. But he doesn't know that Seika has been watching Bleach and already had planned this 6 months ahead. 6 months back, Seika had summoned another Ayakashi named Banzai and instructed him to locate an elder newt and drive it out of its nest. Even though he wasn't the elder newt to ambush the city, the plan still went smoothly. Yuki then questions the reason behind doing all this in a roundabout way when he can achieve whatever he wants in this world filled with weak humans. Seika tells her that he had vowed to not repeat the same mistakes and wants to become one of those useless humans. Following all this, Seika and Yifa commence their journey towards Lodania as Ruft bids them farewell. On their way, Seika gifts Yifa a necklace that will attract elementals toward him, which makes her insanely happy. Amidst all this, Seika had forgotten that he gets nauseous on a carriage and keeps puking all the way. They eventually reach Lodania and head towards their inn. Meanwhile, his father is reminiscing about the time when Seika's father went outside to buy milk and never returned. According to him, Seika's father is his brother, who got lost in the demon country, where he probably fell for a busty demon. Even after Seika's birth, he had realized that Seika is an overpowered brat who could either serve as a hero or destroy the entire kingdom. Keeping this in mind, he decided to send him to the Magic Academy, which is a good place. Upon reaching the inn, Seika informs Yifa that he had booked another room for her and settles down. As they are conversing, Yifa asks Seika if she could visit his room at night. But being a dimwit, Seika fails to comprehend what she is saying and misunderstands the situation. Hearing this, Yifa heads outside to get something to eat, while Yuki tells Seika that he had fumbled this situation. She further tells him that Yifa is a simp who wants to take advantage of her status as his servant. Seika, on the other hand, is your average protagonist who doesn't know about women and dismisses the topic. The following day, Seika and Yifa head towards the Magic Academy where the entrance exam is supposed to take place. As soon as they enter the academy, a woman asks all of them to form a line and introduce themselves. Seika introduces himself as Seika Lamperouge, which shocks them, and they aspire to become his friends. Yifa also introduces herself as a commoner, as they are asked to place their hands on a magic orb that will appraise their magic aptitude. Yifa places her hand on the orb, and it turns out she has an affinity for wind and fire magic. However, when Seika places his hand over it, The orb doesn't glow, which shocks everyone. Seika then reveals that he doesn't possess any magic power, and the students' behavior towards him changes immediately. As they are bashing him for cheating his way into the academy, another girl appears at the spot and breaks through the line to get her magic assessed. It is revealed that this brat possesses affinity to all 4 magic types and is insanely strong. As she is heading back, Seika expresses his gratitude for diverting everyone's attention, but gets mocked by the girl as well. Watch this next video.